Please be aware this will be a spoiler-filled discussion. Hello, and welcome to the Minority Arts Appreciation Society, where we're ticking all the boxes and providing a much-needed minority perspective in popular internet discourse. My name's Matty, my pronouns are she, her, and I lead the film discussions.
My name's Josh, my pronouns are he, him, and I lead the music discussions.
Okay, sweet. So, what do you want to get off your chest before we talk about Possessor, about Malcolm and Marie?
Yeah, no, so 2021, new film, been getting a lot of clout, especially, after Valentine's Day, big romantic
Mm-hmm.
film, Malcolm and Marie, which is sort of like a breakout. Well, John David Washington has been doing kind of highly regarded films for a minute now, but for
Mm-hmm.
Zendaya, this is a real breakout. Like, this is her first real, like, adult role where she isn't playing like a
Yeah.
teenager. Like, obviously, Euphoria has adult themes in it, but it's still like it's like Skins. It's still like a teenager thing, right? As a
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man. Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like so yeah. In that way, it was kind of like exciting. Like, there's lots of buzz around it, from the Zendaya fan base, aka all of Twitter. Um, and I was pretty stunned because I read the plot synopsis and I was like, wait a minute, that's the exact same plot as Before Midnight. Um, and then I was even more confounded because yeah, like it has a very average rating on Letterboxd, and like all of my friends, on Letterboxd who I regard, giving it like fives and fours, and I'm just like, man, is this for
Fives and fours
whack
out of
or
10, that is. Fives
yeah,
and
out of
yeah,
10,
yeah.
and I'm like, and this sounds like everything about this film sounds good to me, like
Yeah, and like, it's one of
yeah,
those films that seems to look really good in black and white. It's really weird.
mm,
It's
it looks
really
really
weird.
good. I,
Yeah,
I
that's the
I
thing.
have to like watch it and like report back in the next recording we do
Yeah.
to follow up this mini series of Malcolm and Marie takes that we're doing. But like it was a real thing of like I couldn't well, I can't wait to see it because I can't figure out if like people don't like it because it's legitimately like uninteresting and bad,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's like a thing of like people expected like a romantic film and they got like 2 hours of a couple fighting in a room.
Yeah.
And I really hope it's the latter. Like, I really hope that it's just
Oh,
a.
it'd be
'Cause
so
I've
good.
seen a lot of stuff like people joking on Twitter, like, damn, some of the shit that Malcolm was saying in this film was so disrespectful. Like, wow, this couple be together. Like, this was horrible to watch. And I'm like, I don't know, that kind of sounds
That's
like my jam.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, no,
horrible, uncomfortable arguing.
I and like I really do hate those film takes where people are like,
Mm,
it's like, why would these people even be together in the first place? And it's like, oh, there has to be a story, dude. Something that's been annoying me as of late is just the application of like everyday kind of morals to like scenarios in movies because it's like it's not fucking real. Like you don't have to just be like, oh, if this was real, this would be really bad. It's like, yeah, that's why it's a movie.
yeah, there's the realism point, and it is real. There's lots of unhappy relationships, which is why there are films about it. But also,
Exactly. Yeah.
also like I don't. Sometimes I don't. When people say that, when people like get really with certain types of criticism, I can't tell if people are angry at the film because the characters are meanies and they're
Yes.
like
Yeah.
don't like the people, or if it's like actual they think the film was like poorly crafted. Because like lots of it was like, wow, some of the shit John David Washington was saying in this film, I can't believe it. Like, what an asshole. And I'm like, is this an argument? Are you saying it's
I
bad
know
because he's an
exactly what
asshole,
you're
or are you
talking
saying like it
about.
evoked a bad feeling? Because like I guess maybe like another comparable film like this would be like Ryan Gosling's performance in Blue Valentine, who is a character that's impossible not to feel conflicted about, very very problematic person.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, sometimes I don't know if people are taking away points from the film because of it being unlikable or pushing the audience away in that way.
I I think I have noticed that because like I don't know, sometimes people are talking about films where it's genuinely like, I'm not sure if the film was saying that this person was bad, was a nice person, uh, or like, there was just a genuinely morally grey character in the film. And I don't know, it seems to genuinely be a take of like, the film was giving me this character, and so therefore, and they weren't inherently posed as like an archetypal villain. Therefore, the film was saying like for some reason they're like a good character, like they're meant to be good. It's a really weird
Yeah,
take, and I
like the
know
film is
exactly what you're talking
praising
about.
that
It's like
character.
exactly, and it's like I don't know. It's quite hard to have conversations like that because it's like I don't know. It's not a particularly like nuanced thing to have like a morally grey character be like a focal point of the film. Like it would be like if you watched I'm Thinking of Ending Things and you were like, oh man, that Jesse Plemons guy, he was kind of a dick. I don't know, I don't really know how I felt about that. And it's like I've had conversations like that, and it is just like it is weird. It is a really weird stance to take on films like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's like the unlikable protagonist issue, especially with like lots of prestige. The meme of like showing pictures of like Joker and uh Tyler Durden of like,
Wolf of Wall
people
Street.
Wolf of
Yeah.
Wall Street, yeah, exactly. Like people like and I don't know if people generally think these films are glorifying this type of person or if I don't know. I find it kind of lame. Like, do you need a bright neon signs
Yeah.
or do you need Scorsese to walk out and say, "Hey, you're not meant to like Jordan's. You don't emulate
He's
Jordan.
not the good guy.
I'm showing you how depraved Wall Street is."
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I don't know. Well, yeah. Before we move on, it is a thing of like, I just wish people would be. Maybe it's me not being able to read tone. Um,
Hmm.
but I just wish people would be really clear when they're saying like this film effectively portrayed a complicated, ambiguous, and rough character
Yeah.
and evoked these feelings in me, versus this film glorifies something that is harmful. And I wish people
Okay.
would just be really clear when, again, maybe this will be not be able to read tone properly, but yeah, it does bug
No,
me.
I do think it's something that should be made specifically clear because, like, I don't know. I do think there is a bit of a tendency in popular film discussion nowadays where, like, when there is a morally grey character, people do online kind of go like, I don't really know how I feel about this, and it's like, I do, I think you should be clear and you should like make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen because, like, not to make like a straw man thing at all, but just like you kind of have to be vigilant and make sure that yeah, films don't just become like goodies and baddies because
Moralistic tales that
yeah,
at the end they look at the camera and say, "You see, it turns out Jordan was a bad guy all along." Like, like I'm an
yeah,
adult. I treat me like
exactly.
an adult.
Because like yeah, obviously like it's nice to have nice morals in a film, but I also want to keep getting films like Goodfellas, like and if we turn art into like the thing that tells us our morals back
Aesop
to us,
fables.
yeah, exactly, then we will lose stuff like that, and that is a terrible thing in itself. Okay, awesome. So this episode we're going to be talking about Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. Now, this is a film that came out last year and I think generated quite a bit of buzz. So the premise of this film is essentially that there is a hit woman and she can inhabit the minds of people close to her assassination targets. The film is essentially exploring a specific case of her blurring the lines between herself and one of the people she occupies. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Josh, what did you think of Possessor?
Yeah, odd one, isn't it? Sort of a cross between like I don't know, Hitman Blood Money being John Malkovich and Driver San Francisco. If anyone
It
played that old chestnut.
it does feel
Um,
like a massive crossover of a lot of different things.
hmm.
That like especially just a lot of different texts are in this. It made me think of a lot of different stuff while I was watching it.
I got some like James Cameron Avatar vibes.
Oh my
With
god.
how it communicates that she is controlling another body, when the camera shoots back to her sleeping in the bed.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah. and obviously the Cronenberg influences are here. I was expecting it was a weird one because I really was expecting like full on horror, and it was
Yeah,
more
me
of
too.
like
The
spy thriller
mm, that's true.
with horror elements.
Yeah, it's definitely like I don't know, the poster really got you on the horror thing. But I think one thing I'll say is like this film is especially fucked vibes. Like if it's not horror, it's that
Mm.
kind of just absolute like bottomless pit like oh there is just nothing like positive you can salvage from this film. It is just bad vibes. The tone honestly reminded me of a Black Mirror episode quite a lot. Um,
It does feel like a bit like a pilot for like that type of show where like
yeah,
each episode she invades a different body and we learn new things about like her, through these kind of vignette stories.
yeah, that's super true.
Yeah, so I mean, again, no new concepts here. All seen it before in Quantum Leap. It was I really struggled with this film because
Okay.
um I basically I don't really like the frame in which the story is told through.
Right.
Like the kind of spy thriller framing, kind of uh, it tells its narrative through. There's a very clear, unambiguous kind of display of she is an assassin. There is sci-fi technology that puts her into the brain of people, and that's like the
Mm-hmm.
premise. And my favorite parts of the film were like the fucked vibe, surrealist, you know, merging bodies, merging identities,
Mm-hmm.
Cronenberg imagery, and I really like to like there's like stuff in it that I really thought was cool. I
Okay.
would have liked if it was presented more of that surrealist foot first and like thriller genre stuff not so much. Kind of like I was thinking a lot about the film Under the Skin by Jonathan Glazer, which I think has
Yeah.
like a very similar structure of like person going around doing bad things to people, but you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But in that film, you have no frame for understanding what is happening, and that made it like so much more upsetting. And I think I
Yeah.
would have liked this more if it straight up showed me like all the fuck shit that was happening, but didn't have those scenes of like going back to home base and like explaining that this is like a spy thing and the technology behind it. I don't know if that's like a weird complaint, but I wish it was like more ambiguous, I guess, for more of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think my main problem with the film actually comes from a similar place because this film really sold me on its like tone and its visceral nature. Like I was really in it in terms of just feeling like, oh, this is just so horrible. Like it's just such especially bad vibes. But I think so it sold me on that, but the main thing it didn't really sell me on was like kind of story, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't really gripped by like the innate kind of like what's gonna come next and how is it gonna be presented to me. I think it kind of comes from what you said because it's that's a framing thing because it's kind of given to you from this protagonist journey. Uh and that protagonist is such a kind of classic spy thriller protagonist where she's very subdued and quiet, which is obviously playing into the kind of themes of like, you know, suppressed personality and blurring the lines between her subjects. But at the same time, it kind of left me really cold to like the kind of like you were saying more like because there's a genuine like horror around who she is becoming and the
Yeah,
person that she's losing, but
yeah,
I found it really hard to connect with that horror because of how subdued the protagonist was. Like I'm not gonna
yeah,
like the world around the really scary like spy stuff because like when she's like in like the say like the main guy that she infiltrates and even the person at the beginning, it is really entertaining, but the world around that stuff I really wasn't into. Like
yeah.
uh it just I don't know, like even things like the set design of like the machine and the room she was in, it was, I don't know, it reminded me of like much lower budget kind of horror stuff that I've seen, and like not the
Yeah.
good kind of low budget.
Yeah, and it's very austere, very cold. The
Mm,
world feels a bit like Hitman, where well, Hitman plays it for comedy, that everyone is so like stereotypical and
yeah.
deadpan, and that's where the comedy of Hitman arises because it's so absurd the things you get to do in that world.
Hmm.
It works like clockwork, but this is pretty unironic, like, and I can see kind of like the symbolic moves it's making, like such as the room that she's in where she's like put into that quite cool like Ghost in the Shell style contraption on her head.
Yeah.
The chairs in it are like the same chairs that you'd get in like old timey therapist rooms, or like the chairs that I think I learned this from Mad Men. In Victorian times, they'd get that like long kind of throw chair that kind of her boss was laying down in, and
Yeah,
that
I
was
know
for
the
like
one you mean.
women who felt overwhelmed. They get to like, because their corsets were too tight or something, they get to like lay down in those chairs if they feel like they're gonna faint. It's really fucked up,
Oh
but that's
God,
just the thing.
yeah.
But yeah, so I can see there's
Yeah.
like kind of metaphor here about this being like a therapy situation for her, and kind of like stuff about the parts where like identities are merging. Clearly it's saying something about like depersonalization, um feeling trapped outside of your own life in kind of a mental health way. You know,
Mm,
again, to evoke Mad Men, there's a great line with Andre says, it's like I can see my life, it's right there, but I'm scratching at the glass, I can't get in. Feeling
hmm.
depersonalized. So I felt like that's the kind of that type of depression was kind of what they were displaying with the main character. I just feel like it would have been really emotionally evocative if it had more symbolic storytelling. Um, for example, have you seen if anyone's familiar with the film Upstream Color by Shane Carruth, uh,
Mm.
if you go on like the internet and look at a short summary, it says a man and a woman are drawn together, entangled in the life cycle of an ageless organism, right?
Yeah.
But the actual film is two people going through the weirdest surreal shit, and you actually don't understand that there's this like weird supernatural organism shit going on in the background. It is all something you figure out after the film's done. You kind of theorize what the fuck just happened, and
Yeah.
I would have liked that more in this film, like metaphorical storytelling, symbolic storytelling, kind of like showing me the stuff that is happening, but just flat out not telling me the spy
Yeah.
shit. So I'm just like, who the fuck is this woman? Why is he saying the same things as her? Are they linked in their head in some way? And I feel like in that
Oh,
way,
that
it would
would
have
be
felt
so
more.
cool.
Yeah, when you have them like flashing between the two of them, it would have felt. I would have felt as a viewer like I was experiencing psychosis, and I
Mm.
didn't know who I was, and well, not me literally, but like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. But because it's so like when that stuff was happening, I was like, yeah, but on a meta level, I know that like this is like some soldier
Yeah.
PTSD situation because she's in this guy's brain. If I just didn't know that shit and had to figure it out, I would have been more
That'd be way
evocative.
better.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a show, yeah, like you kind of said indirectly, it's a show don't tell thing. It's to be honest, just like don't tell us, yeah, at all. Just let us figure it out for ourselves because, if we can't figure it out, it's really scary. To bring up another film, I'm thinking of Ending Things. Never
That
lets
does that
you
perfectly.
exactly like you never know what the fuck is going on, and it makes it so powerful. I don't know, like I kind of understand because I don't know. Sometimes I think there is like a gut instinct to like ground your story in something, and like especially with science fiction, I think that's the problem with this film is it does go for more science fiction than just straight surrealism. It feels much more loyal to that genre than just like straight horror, and because of that, it's kind of stuck in those genre elements that we've been talking about, where it's like it really reminded me of Blade Runner 2049 as well
Yeah,
in those
it's structured in a
sequences.
similar way.
Yeah, absolutely. And like in those sequences of like like, oh, I want you to recalibrate and that kind of thing, like because I remember there was that element in that film of like
Yeah,
make sure you're like keeping in line as
which like
robot killer.
really works for Blade Runner because that's like a more middle-brow genre piece sci-fi action film, which it
Yeah.
does kind of artsy stuff, but it is like doing the genre thing. Whereas this,
Yes.
I feel like this is aiming a bit higher. It's going for something weirder, more surreal, more art housey. So it's odd that it has like the cold open where you see the first kill and the kind of very genre stuff in a very normal way. It was so
Yeah.
normal.
It was very normal. I was really surprised by that. Uh, I think one thing, like, I did really enjoy it as just like a watch, though. Like, I do think it's just entered. I just do think these kind of films are just nice to see when you do get them, even if you do have major problems with them. Like, I do think one thing I really liked about the film is, and I think could have been taken further if the film did the other stuff that we're talking about, but I really did like that for a lot of the time, you can't really tell who is in control of the main guy's body at points. Like, there is a point in the film where you is like there's kind of a break, and at any point you it could be either person in control, and I do think the film actually does a good job of not actually communicating that to you that well, which sounds like a problem, but like we said, I think it actually kind of works.
Well, it was okay. My issue is it's so thoroughly hammered in for the middle portions of the film that like when she sits in the bed and puts on the helmet, she is going into Ready Player One mode of entering this dude's
Yeah,
brain, and then after that point, she's in his head, and then after she kills Sean Bean and Sean Bean gets his contracted violent death scene that he has to
dude,
have in
yeah,
every film.
I
Um,
laughed out loud when he showed up as the
she
target.
she vomits of blood,
Yeah,
and I guess I guess I just took that as a straight like, okay, so now she's like trapped in his head. And again, like that's a really simplistic answer, and I might be wrong, but I think if the film presented these situations more vaguely, I would have came away. I wouldn't have jumped to such a simple conclusion so quickly. I would have felt more fucked
yeah.
with.
It is because it's reassuring, just like knowing to some extent what's going on as well. I think I don't
Like
know.
Avatar, James Cameron Avatar. His host body dies, and then he's trapped in the Avatar body.
Yeah. Oh my
It's very
god.
easy to get stuck in the same like film logic. I wanted the more
Yeah.
surreal
No,
dream
I.
logic.
That's what I mean by like reassuring is like just as soon as you can kind of connect it to like, oh, okay, the film's doing this thing. Uh, yeah, you kind of get stuck on a path in your mind, and it's kind of like, yeah, the film kind of loses its edge with what it's doing. But I
Well,
think,
yeah,
mm,
yeah. I was gonna get on like try to be more positive and say something
yeah, no,
positive.
me too. I think
No,
like
go on.
I think it's all presented remarkably well. I think the direction is like fantastic, and the performances are all again fantastic. Like the guy whose brain
Kit
she's in.
Harington look alike.
Yeah, Kit Harington look alike, but like I remember seeing him come up a few years ago and thinking, "Oh, that's just a Kit Harington guy," like and
He's a
like
podcast
dismissing him.
alumni.
Oh my god! Yeah, wait, what? What was he?
He was in it. It Comes at Night. He was the handsome young
Oh
prince.
yeah, no, because and that's the thing is like now I'm no longer an idiot Game of Thrones fan. I'm like, oh, he's actually like really good. He has this like really good edge for playing like just kind of like this guy has bad vibes kind of characters, like, but also like really disheveled and dejected ones at that. And I really liked that because
Yeah.
it was kind of really cool seeing. I do think it was really interesting in the sequences where the hit woman was having to negotiate his world. Like I do think that was genuinely quite
That
well done.
Okay, that was another. Okay, I. It's up to this. I really like the gore in this film, and I
But yeah,
really like
it was
these
good.
surreal moments. But it made me do so much like backseat driving, kind of Monday morning quarterbacking.
Okay.
football manager thinking of like so many stuff I would have edited. Like what if the film starts off with the perspective of not Kit Harington, and gradually you see like this he keeps flashing into this woman, and you're like, what? Why is he? What's happening? Is he schizophrenic? Like, what's going on? What's
Yeah.
going on? And then when you get like the worm speech and stuff like that, it's more like it's very unclear as if he's been abducted by an alien or if he has split personality. Like, and then
Mm-hmm.
like what if like the climax, when she puts on the mask, which look the mask looks so good, and I
Yeah.
wanted the mask to stay on for the rest of the film because I love it, and it's like, don't worry, it's just a wacky dream sequence, and I'm like, what if this just became the reality of the film, this weird mask thing, and like it went around
Yeah.
killing, like. How evocative would that have been about a statement about like depersonalization or psychosis or
Mm-hmm.
it made me do so much like backseat driving.
I think that's what's frustrating about the film is that it not only is that stuff in there, it feels like what the text is, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. The stuff around it is like it feels like stuff that is there to make that stuff kind of happen rather than actually being like the core point of everything.
Yeah.
And it that so yeah, it is kind of frustrating because there are details that I really love, but I'm kind of like, uh, those are kind of a remnant of this kind of like exterior film that is happening to make the real point of the film happen, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It's really weird because it's like if I could just do my super edit of this film, right? Which is just like take out all the scenes where characters very dryly say, "We are spies. We go into pods.
Yeah.
We do spy things." If I take out all those kind of explanatory
Hmm.
scenes, imagine like a scene like when he's having sex with his girlfriend, and then it just flashes to him having like breast and also a
Yeah.
penis, and you're
Oh
like,
yeah, I forgot about
and
that.
it's like a really evocative moment. There's something in there about gender and about bodies and about identity. But like because I have the meta knowledge that but well, this is a spy agent woman who's in his body controlling him, and now she's confusing her identity with his. It softens the blow. But if it was like a complete like this is what it feels like to not feel and think of your body,
Mm.
and without any of that spy shit, like man, I feel like that would have been like really again evocative.
Yeah, and like kind of the framing of it, it kind of means like, oh well, ultimately, this is all okay. It kind of doesn't really have any outside implications because it's like you can't relate to it. You can't relate to that kind of thing because it's like it's just this is obviously there are films about situations that we could never relate to, but if we genuinely had no idea why this is happening, rather than knowing like, okay, this is this like otherworldly sci-fi device that like we don't have to think about, like if it was just this like horror that we couldn't comprehend, and it's like then it's so much like less reassuring in a way. There's a lot less to cling on to. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so thrilling and scary. Like when okay, my favorite scene in the film, the mask scene.
Yeah.
When he like reaches down to her face, puts his fingers in her eyeballs, and like
Oh,
crushes her head, and then
oh
pulls
yeah, it
her
just like
skin
pops.
and puts
Yeah.
it on his. It's such a good moment, and I just so badly wanted it to stay. I wanted to stay in this fucked space. I don't
Yeah.
want it to wake up and oh, it was a spooky dream, and we go back to the genre spy film. I want him to walk around with the mask. I sound really petulant, but um it would have felt so much more confident if it just let the surrealism stick.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I am really with you. I don't know. It's tough though, because I did have a really good time with it, and I don't know, maybe I just like wanted to like feel an exceptionally bad vibe from a film because God, it's been a long time since I've seen a child get killed in a movie. I'll say that. Like,
But it's okay because the child wasn't really a child. It was the agent taking over the body of the child. So like the body died, but the agent experienced the shooting. It wasn't this
yeah,
horrifying psychosis thing. It's a spy thriller.
yeah, no, I thought so too. And then it's kind of glossed over, and then the film just sort of ends. And I think that was probably the most disappointing part of the film was the fact that, like, on a physical level, like, actually rather on an emotional level, things were not okay. But actually, physically, things kind of panned out. Like the headspace and body of the protagonist was preserved, and like yeah, like she's lost her family, but that really is not what the film was about. Like the tension of the film was not like, oh, I hope she gets to end up with the family. Like it was, oh god, what the hell's gonna happen to her? Is she gonna be lost in like some kind of nebulous what's the limbo? Nebulous brain limbo
Yeah.
between, and then she
Yeah.
wakes up and all it's kind of all just good. And I'm not saying like give me a bad ending, but if you're gonna give me a good ending, like let it be a payoff, let it be earned, kind of thing.
Yeah, I just wanted like yeah, well in terms of like give me a bad ending, just like opening up more space for ambiguity. Like there's a really clear-cut direct story here about
Yeah,
kind of a woman whose family gets killed because they become a liability to her assassin career. Which is like, I don't know, a normal assassin movie thing to happen. Like imagine if the ending of this was like, we've gone through this whole thing, flash between these two perspectives, not understanding why they recite the lines of each other, how they're linked. And then in the end, like, she's killed her entire family in the body of this man, but you don't really
yeah,
understand why she's in the body of this man. And it's like, did she just lose it and kill her family? Is this, there's so much. It just, I would be thinking about it a lot more after it's done. But then it ends. It's like, oh no, it's because her family became a liability, so the agent took over the child of the body and killed everyone. And it's
yeah.
just, mm.
I yeah no. Ultimately, when if you, I think there is like a sentence you can explain this film with, and that's ultimately the problem. Like you can just say like when and that sentence is a boring sentence. It's a hitman goes into the bodies of people, kills them, has confusing experience with a subject. Uh, she has some personal loss, but ultimately it's kind of resolved. It's like I, there could be like a cool pulpy genre piece there, but that is not kind of what the style of the film is going for. It is way more going for the heady kind of abstract surrealist stuff. And so when you have that stuff in there and it doesn't go for it, then it does just kind of end up being disappointing.
It's like what is great about this film, the surrealist imagery, the violence, you know, the few confusing shots at points
Yeah,
is from that surrealist batch. And you think about art, like something that kind of did what this film does really well, in my opinion, is like an Evangelion, where you start with a framework of like, okay, it's a mecha show, we're fighting aliens, but it,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't explain enough about the mechanics of this world that when you get to the end of that show, where completely fucked and weird shit is happening with no framework of understanding. The last
Yeah,
two episodes of that show, you have no framework of understanding what is happening. It is
mm-hmm.
so much more thought-provoking, evocative, and exciting. If
Yeah,
that show came out and said, now Shinji's gonna go into an alien dimension where things become weirder, I would have hated that. Same with like, a Eraserhead. If Eraserhead was like, and then his he gave birth to an alien because his brain was implanted with alien juice. Like, no, just have him give birth to an alien and don't explain it.
yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
so much
That's
freakier.
horrifying. That's really weird. Why is he doing that? Yeah, no, totally. So I think it's about time to wrap this one up. Um, Ultimately, I'd give this a weak recommend. I I do think there is like a good amount of good film in here worth seeing, and I don't know. I do think it is fun at the end of the day to like watch a film and long for what if at times. And I don't know, maybe you'll be able to watch it and kind of just enjoy it as that kind of pulpy genre piece that we were talking. But like we said, it is definitely kind of caught between the two, with one of them being far more interesting than the other. And kind of, like I said, like ultimately the film, I feel like, betrays the more interesting part of its premise, with everything just kind of ending up mentally okay. And so, I don't know. If that does sound disappointing, then I wouldn't recommend it. But if you but there are some really fantastic sequences in here, really fantastic direction and performances. Like, everything is in the right place for something great here, but unfortunately, it's kind of like an Us situation, the Jordan Peele film Us, where everything is on board, but it just doesn't go for the kill. So yeah, weak recommend on this one.
I've got to give this like the weakest of not recommends,
Uh-huh.
simply because I think there's a lot good in this film. But and maybe this is unfair. I'm judging this film on art house standards because I think that is what is being presented to me, and I think that's
Yeah.
where its ambitions lie. And for me, as an art house kind of horror thriller thing, it really does fall flat. And there are like some really cool moments which I really like. Um, but this world feels so kind of cold and austere, and the characters like feel a bit. And I know it's meant to evoke a feeling of detachment, but because it just feels so. Some of it feels so generic and trite, and I really don't like the genre stuff in this film. And it didn't work for me, and
Mm.
it didn't subvert it enough or would play with it enough. It was played a bit too straight for me, and and you know the ambitions of a film like this are not are Lord worthy. Is that a word? Worthy of lauding? But rating it as an art house film and not
Okay.
as a spy thriller, it failed for me, and it didn't live up to kind of films in the same camp, I'd argue, such as Under the Skin, Upstream Color, which kind of play with like body horror and identity melding and surrealism in a way that I found more evocative and more affecting. Um,
Hmm.
so because it, in my opinion, has these ambitions that I don't think it lives up to, I can't wholeheartedly recommend it, even if I think you could watch it and get stuff out of it.
Hmm. Sweet.
Yeah.
No, I completely get where you're coming from, and to be honest, I probably do agree with you. Okay, awesome. So, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Next week we are having a 2020 Boxes December episode. We'll be
Nice.
talking about Rico Nasty's vacation, nightmare vacation,
Nightmare Vacation.
nightmare vacation. Um, that's such
Okay,
like an
sweet.
un-Rico Nasty title, but yeah,
Mm.
and just because you brought up singles a lot during our kind of during some previous 20 boxes, so I was really curious as to how you'd feel about the final product.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited to talk about this actually. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So thank you very much for listening. Like and subscribe wherever you are, and check out our social medias. They're linked down below. Okay, thanks very much. Goodbye.